I want to thank everyone for coming together on this beautiful Friday. Super excited about this session today. We are going to learn about 5G and its intersection with hybrid cloud. And we have two amazing executives from the high-tech familia that are going to be sharing with us today. The first person I'm going to introduce is high-tech champion within IBM, Marisa Viveros, who is the Vice President of Strategy and Solutions for IBM Global Telecommunications, Media, and Entertainment. And the second executive that I'll be introducing is Lynette Aguilar, Vice President and General Manager, North America for AT&T, and also the 2021 EEP Fellow. So excited to have representation for both IBM and AT&T here with us. It's going to be really fantastic conversation from two really great companies. So without further ado, Marisa and Lynette.
Good, thank you, colleagues, and thank you so much for joining. We are really excited to share this afternoon with you, so really appreciate, and I hope we will all learn something new out of this discussion. So I'm really happy to be with Lynette in this call, because IBM has always had a fantastic partnership with AT&T, so that was for years and years, so it is a perfect match. So thanks for joining, and thank you for listening to us. So I'll start by just introducing myself. So Marisa Viveros, and I'm originally from Chile. I was born there many years ago. And I studied electrical engineering, later on computer science, and that's how I got my inroads into technology and doing what I do today. Within IBM, I started my career more than 25 years ago by being a software engineer in building technologies, building and creating innovation for our clients within the research team. And later on, after a few years, I moved into the business side as an executive and began to lead areas such as networking services, security services. Finally, I was also working with a number of leaders on creating leadership in cybersecurity. And within the past 5 years, I've been working on telecommunications. So I lead strategy and solutions for IBM and globally for the telecommunication and media industry. And some of you may be asking, what does that mean? So we serve about most of the telcos around the world. Probably 84% of those are our clients. And my job is to simplify the portfolio, simplify what IBM does, what IBM stands for, simplify and make it relevant to clients in terms of their industry imperatives. So I'm very focused on, kind of defining the direction of what we do and what we don't do. I'm also working with a number of partners. So we are growing every day our partner ecosystem as it relates to digital engagement, network and platforms, enterprise modernization. We have a number of partners that we work with, and that's one of my assignments, to work with them and making sure that we have all of those clearly defined and clearly integrated with our solutions. The last part of my job, which I find it really, really motivating for me every day, is that we do a lot of pre-integration and pre-testing of our solutions of IBM technology plus partners technology. So I lead a number of engineers and architects, software developers within IBM that are dedicated to do this job. And it's just fascinating because we're always creating the art of the possible. And I have one team that resides in Dallas that works with my customer, including AT&T, and I also have a team in Europe, which is located in France. So my job, I can tell you, it is absolutely motivating every day. I do like the global perspective. I think because I'm a foreigner and because I have an accent, I can reach out to not only within the US but also overseas. So really, really motivating. 25 years in the company, but I have done so many activities, so many jobs that it looks like 10 different companies. So Lynette, with that introduction, I pass it on to you.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. So thank you guys for spending your Friday afternoon with us. And like Marisa said, I love your comment that it feels like you've worked for so many different companies, because I feel the same about AT&T, and their companies are such great partners, as you mentioned. There's a lot of cultural things that keep all of us around. So in the spirit of introduction, my name is Lynette Aguilar. I'm the Vice President and General Manager of North Texas. So I run, for those of you that are familiar with Texas, think about El Paso, down to Waco, out to Tyler, Dallas, Lubbock, even a little bit in New Mexico and Las Cruces. And what that means is everything AT&T does in that area, from working with our consumers to our business clients, working with our network to make sure, our wireless and wireline networks are strong. Our construction engineering, where are we building things, our retail stores, really everything that comes into AT&T operating in North Texas is what I run. So you could say I'm the CEO of AT&T in North Texas. So I've been doing that for a little bit, but I started with AT&T 15 years ago. I actually just celebrated my 15th anniversary this week. So I'm excited. It feels a little bit like halfway to retirement. So I'll start counting down, I guess. I started my career in Texas, and I'm a Texas gal. So born and raised in Victoria, Texas, which is kind of middle of nowhere on the coast, near the coast of Texas. And I started with AT&T in a call center, but I've bounced around and had multiple careers, just like Marisa. I've done call centers with sales and service. I've done marketing, program management, product management. I have done strategy, business planning, you name it. I did most of that in Dallas, but I spent actually the past couple of years in the DF, so in Mexico City, where I did strategy planning and I ran a call center there as well. So I've just returned back to Texas in Dallas in June of last year. So it's good to be home, but we were excited to be there in Mexico while we were there. And from a personal perspective, I'm a wife. I've been married for 15 years, and my husband and I have two little girls that are in first and third grade. And couldn't be more excited to be here with you guys. Marisa and I have a conversation planned, but certainly look for your questions or comments throughout so that we can have an engaging discussion. We're not going to get too technical at all with you guys on 5G and cloud, and also the state of the industry. So looking forward to the great dialogue.
Great, excellent. So like Lynette said, we will start with talking a little bit about the state of the industry. And that is so important because in the times that we are living now of pandemic, telecommunication companies have to step up, tremendously. And the traffic increase that we have seen, that our clients are seeing, the surge sometimes is 2 times, 3 times, up to 4 and 9 times more than the traffic that they ever saw before. Whether it is, for business, like all of us probably doing our job via Zoom and via WebEx and many other mediums every day. But also it's the family side, the entertainment side, watching movies and looking at all of these different areas that now we're being entertained by its mediums, and telcos have been at the center of delivering the capabilities that we need in these days. And then I will end with that piece with kind of a very personal topic that given most of my family is in Chile. We have family reunions every week. By the way, we never had such a often communication within our families. Now communicating every week via Zoom and having at least 1 hour or 2 hours where we share a drink or a coffee or sometimes just water. But that's kind of what it has taken us in this new environment, which probably will not end here. And I wanted to just ask Lynette, what is AT&T seeing from a COVID perspective? What are the demands that your clients are having? Because definitely we are the beneficiaries of that.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question, and one we talk about so often, right? When the pandemic first hit, I'll tell you, it felt like, I'm sure we all felt this way. It felt like the world was tearing apart at the seams, right? And we knew that our network, our services, our people had to be there to hold strong for all of our customers, right, around the world as a global company. And one of the biggest challenges we found is exactly what you were describing, right? The virtual connections had to really come in and take the place of the physical. So when you think specifically about our network, and I had to write this down because no way I was going to remember this data point, but I thought it was important and I wanted to share with you. On any given day today, right, in April, right, there are about 468 petabytes of data that crosses our network, which is up about 40% year over year. So again, 468 petabytes. That's the equivalent of streaming like 100 million 2-hour long HD movies at the same time. I mean, just think about that. How much data is going across our network? It's significant. And I threw out that kind of movie example because I'm sure with all the movies that we're watching and streaming, I'm sure it feels like you've watched 468 petabytes of movies at this point in the pandemic. But what I'll also say, Marisa, is it's more than just kind of the video, but that's what we think about. We think about the Zooms, and we do a lot of like birthday parties. You know, my kids are little, so they're cutting their cakes and whatnot with the family on Zoom and FaceTime. But it's also the text message increase, right? And this is what surprised me the most, because the video, again, we think about it, but we've had more than a 50% increase in the number of text messages that are crossing our network. So during the pandemic, we have a 1-day record, and get this, guys, 99,000 text messages per second across our network. 99,000. So I don't know how many text messages you guys are sending, but it's a lot on a daily basis that are crossing. I think that's what's really helping the pandemic, right, on the personal side. And then there's the education piece of all of this, right? My kids did virtual school for last spring. I'm very, very fortunate that they're doing in-person school this school year and have done so safely. But we know there's challenges, right, across the country for people to be able to do that. And so I'm really proud to share that AT&T's role in helping the education of students across our network. We've connected almost 500,000 students and teachers across 49 different states and DC with affordable mobile connectivity that they really need. So many impacts. We all feel it day to day. And, I don't know about you guys, but I've got 2 phones here. Let's see if you can see them. Two phones. I've got my, my laptop, my iPad. I mean, just the number of devices that I'm relying on to stay connected, right? So whether it's life, whether it's work, it's for play, there's a lot going on, Marisa, and it just continues, right? So I'm kind of curious to get a little bit of audience engagement. How have you guys used technology maybe in a creative way during the pandemic to help survive and thrive, to work, to play? Would love some responses. So feel free to jump off mute or type in chat to see, because, again, it's everything. And I have my oldest is turning 9 next week. So as we're chatting, I'm thinking I haven't scheduled our birthday party yet for her. Any thoughts?
I'll jump in. I feel like it's been a lifesaver to be able just to connect with family that is not in the US, right? That like before you had to depend on a long distance phone call, but now you can do a WhatsApp FaceTime call and you are connected. And imagine not being able to do that during this really intense and crazy time, not being able to check in on your loved ones. I think was so critical in keeping us connected and together globally, right? And so essential and so grateful that we're in a place and time where technology has really given us the ability to do that. Where before, I remember calling my abuelita, like my mom would be like, "You have 3 minutes and that's it," and jump off the call, right? So just being able to do that has been fantastic.
Yeah, I think so, and probably being more intentional about it, right? Like now it's okay. Wait, everybody's alone. Let me make the time and effort to make sure I'm reaching out and trying to build that virtual connection and do it in more than 3 minutes.
Yeah, and also with Also with that, right? Here at the house to connect with family, right? We
Mhm.
do a lot of the portal. So now, like we're eating, right, or something, and the portal just right next to it, and we just call someone. Either it's
Mhm.
a family in here, either it's a family in Mexico. They're connected with their phones as well. So almost everybody has Facebook, right, or parents and stuff. So that's a great connectivity and connect with the kids as well. We are a family of 5, so definitely helps be connected. Now in terms of kids, I have seen my children use the YouTube a lot just to learn. Hey, I want to
Mhm.
learn piano. How can I learn this? Boom, 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 do it, right? So entertainments, I have my son who is very into Rubik's cubes, and so how do you learn Rubik's cube? If I had to advance into more, boom, YouTube, blah blah blah. So a lot of those applications have become very useful. And my sites, I know that Dell has a lot of training and everything that they provide us, but as well, there's now force you to go into more applications or trainings that are out there into apps or even YouTube to learn, right? Do I need to know more about program manager? Do I need to know more about, product specific or things? So I think technology really have come into us to as a research and
Mhm.
visual than ever before.
Indeed, Alicia. So we always ask, can you imagine if pandemic happened, 10 years ago or even 5 years ago? It would have been totally different situation for every one of us.
Oh,
So,
absolutely agree with that.
yes,
Yes, I
yes,
do. I think I was
Well,
actually talking to my kids as well, saying that I don't think so. My parents will be able to educate you this generation.
yes,
And
yes.
they're like, they will
also,
probably be very, very bad.
So,
some of my kids have adapted quite well. I have a 16-year-old and a 12-year-old. In the Scouts, they have done
Mhm.
virtual camping, backyards, and all
Oh
doing
wow.
all in their Zooms. And then at the end, they wake up all at 7. They have to check in at 7 and do in their own backyards early in the pandemic. And also, for my 12-year-old boy, we relaxed some of the screen times. So they started all playing Fortnite or Minecraft together. In fact, they invited this. They have been playing with a friend who last year moved back home to South Korea, and they have been playing with him as well. They has been joining, playing Fortnite or Minecraft with him as well. And these are 12 and 13-year-old kids that using technology could have not connected before.
it's fantastic. That's awesome. Awesome. So let's move into the topic that we did talk about in our announcement. So we said we will discuss 5G. So the 5th generation wireless technology. So let me ask, how many of you know about 5G? Have some ideas of what the new technology will be about? Any hands?
This is
I,
Fernie.
I can interview. Hi, Maritza. Nice to chat with you again. I am working with 5G for the last year and a half in a very deep way. So looking for solutions for our customers and also the enablement of the telcos and the new edge service providers. So this is something that I am familiar with, but at the same time, it is some kind of a mystery, so for the market. And you know why I'm telling that. So yes, I am one of the ones that can support you on that.
Great. So any comments as we move along, please feel free to chime in, and everybody else that. So we want to start to, what is this? What is the vision of 5G? So maybe we talk a little bit of history before we go into that. So we have seen generation of wireless technology, and we have all used our devices. And I think maybe 10 years ago, these were huge devices in terms of size and connectivity and what they could do. So the first generation of 5G began in 1980, and it was all about voice communication. And so there was no data, all about voice. The second generation became in the 1990s. And there we started to get the digital, we got voice. Many of us started to use SMS. We migrated a little bit into multimedia messaging. But that was a time where, the download, it will be around 16 kilobits per second. So very, very slow. We could only afford to do just very small pieces of data, such as an SMS. The 3G generation in the 2000s, that was, I think from an industry perspective, a huge market flow. The telcos spend lots and lots of money in spectrum. They spend lots of money in infrastructure, but the gains that we got from that were very little. So basically, very little function that we could do, compared to 2.5G or to 2G. And the rate of download was 1 megabit per second. I think where we saw most of the successes, and Lynette will talk more about that also, which was 4G, which we're all using today, or what we also call LTE, where there was this huge surge, not only on the download rate and the upload rate of the data, and what we could do with but there was a huge number of applications. So each one of our devices now have probably 50 apps that we use every day, and they're all done through that 4G LTE type of wireless communication. So that we started to huge term. Moreover, what we have seen is the creation of new companies, new business models. The Uber that couldn't exist if we didn't have wireless technology. The Airbnb that we couldn't exist if we didn't have this highest reliable 4G that allow us to have that type of communication and enable those kind of applications. So that has been a big surge, I think, in wireless. So the history is over every 10 years, there is innovation in the industry that is allowing either to the miniaturization of the technology or the higher speed of the processors that are allowing us to have better and better communication. And that's what, and Lynette, maybe you want to have a few words around 4G and what are the bigger apps that you are serving today in your network?
Well, I mean, everything, right? So I think right now it's more about the transition from where we've been to where we're going. And to your point, how there's about every 10 years that we go to a new G. And so as we're doing that transition, right, we're on the cusp of it. I think it's about getting people on the new devices so they can make that transition, right? And future proof, at least for the next 10 years, right? Although I know most of us change our devices every 2 to 3 years. So I think it's more about getting onto the new, right? All my devices are 5G enabled, and I'm benefiting from that, right? And I think when we talk about all of the G's, and I love the history of it, I think people tend to get real confused. It's complicated. What does this mean? You crazy people with your spectrum, I don't understand. But I think it's real simple when you think about, okay, it's really just, the next generation, and it's about faster speeds and lower latency, right? I mean, that's really what it means in terms of practical usage that I think most of us would appreciate just knowing is the kind of ducks and bunnies version of that, right? And we talked about gaming a lot, right? And so I love, even in the chat, there were comments about just the gaming. There's like 65% of adults that are gamers. So whether you admit it or not, right? If you're out there, on Twitch doing gaming, or, I don't know, old school Word with Friends, or, I don't know, Candy Crush. That was definitely a 4G, app that we all used, right? But, if you think about that and having the faster speeds, that's the difference between winning and losing a game, right? Or even when I think about, I've mentioned my children. Remember when it used to take forever to download a movie? Like you'd have to get it like going. I don't even know which G this was, but I remember like you would start downloading the movie at night so that it was ready for your road trip in the morning, right? Where now it's like it takes 30 seconds on a 5G platform to down a Harry Potter movie, right? Which is something I did the other week as my kids we were traveling to El Paso, and you can do it quick, right? So those are the things that matter, is that understanding it's the speed. The lower latency is another thing. So, remember in the older, probably definitely in 3G was so frustrating. Remember the buffering, the buffering and the
Yes.
buffering. And then we were all like, we'd push enter, trying to make it go faster. Right. That's the latency piece of it that we're getting with 5G, right? It's near real time that we're not going to have the buffering. And when you think about applications, right, we've done some cool stuff around that in the sporting area. So, NBA last year, for example, and we had reporters in COVID doing interviews with NBA players, but the players were a hologram. Like you couldn't have done that on, 4G, you certainly couldn't have done it on 3G, that you're doing like hologram interviews, which is very like Star Trek, right? Like it's just, that's weird to think about. We have that technology and we're able to use it today. So that's what I get real excited about, Marisa, when I think about the applications and where we're going with the technology. And then we can do some cool stuff from a public safety perspective. And maybe we'll talk about that in a second, but that's my perspective, what I would add to the history and kind of where we're going.
Good. So in this new technology that is emerging, wireless technology that is emerging, which is 5G, and hopefully we will get it, more deployed. Can you hear me well? Great, thank you. That we will get, nationwide 5G coverage, in the next few years. What is also exciting, besides all of these new, the application and how we can do things faster, is the amount of devices that we can connect. So 4G was all about, in the prior generation, was all about people communication. Within 5G, now we can start looking at device, kind of sensors and other small devices communication. So expanding the number of devices that can be connected into the network. And for me, that is exciting. From a kind of point of view, it will allow a lot of automation within many of the processes that are being done in hospitals, many of the processes that are being done in manufacturing companies. So that automation, it will be facilitated by connecting all of these devices over this wireless technology that has this huge capacity of what Lynette said. One is bandwidth, so capacity and speed. The other one is low latency, so very small, amount of weight for getting the return. And then the last key point of 5G is what people call 5G slicing or slicing network or network slicing, which very much, now the user or the company will have a slice of the network. So now they can control what are the levels of agreements that they have, the capabilities that they can have in their contracts regarding that slice of the network. So no longer sharing the whole network with everyone, but having the capacity of controlling these slices of network that companies or individuals can purchase. And I'm sure there will be new business models around there. So 5G, higher speed, lower latency, the ability to connect many more devices, and the ability to serve the network via the slice. We're talking about 10 times faster than today. So that's definitely going to be a game changer. So go ahead, Lynette.
Yeah, and one thing I'd love to share, you mentioned the hospitals and kind of slicing the network. AT&T has a technology and a network, a special network known as FirstNet. Has anybody heard of that? FirstNet, there you go. I see a couple of hands. So FirstNet is a special network that we created along with the government and the FirstNet agency that's specific for our first responders, right? And so think about your EMS, your fire, your law enforcement. We've got hospitals engaged as well. So many different, frontline facing organizations. But if you think about network congestion and things that have happened, right? In Texas recently, oh my gosh, you Northerners sent to us the crazy winter apocalypse, right? We had AT&T's network stayed strong, but they were competitors of ours that they lost their networks. They had to come join our network to be able to keep people connected. The wildfires in California, networks failed. I see Fernando Miranda on. He and I were working at AT&T in Mexico City together when there was the earthquake. a couple of years ago, network congestion. You couldn't get calls out, calls can't get in, text messages. There's so many people at one moment. We created this network really after the 9/11, right? We all felt that. I won't take us through the trauma, that the need became to where sometimes we're going to need first responders to have their own segment, right? Their own network, that if we need to pull consumers and, if that's going to get overloaded, you cannot have that happen to your first responder community, right? They need the ability to serve our community. So we've got this FirstNet network that's specifically for those first responders, and we're getting it 5G enabled, right? So speaking of more applications, right? Think about an ambulance driver who's en route to a hospital. They're able to provide, specific location information, patient information in near real time, so that while the ambulance is transporting that patient, the hospital is getting that information and they're ready to treat that person appropriately, right? Or law enforcement in the field with video or drone or whatever it is they're doing, to be able to provide that information, share that information, again, with the specific location information that they need to be successful. So I think, yeah, the games and all that's really cool, but I get excited about that as a public service, because we all know, it's all fun and games until a crisis happens, right? And I saw somebody else in the chat, you were in Mexico City too, with Fernando and I when that happened. But you need that. It's so important. And that's when it becomes real, right? The power of being connected, the life-saving power of being connected, and how freaking important it is to be able to do that fast and accurate without any kind of a delay, interruption, but prioritize ability to do so. Absolutely. So I get really excited about it, but it's critical. And I just think, wow, of everything that keeps happening in our world, to be able to have that kind of a safety net from a communication standpoint is incredible.
Great, fantastic. Thanks for sharing that experience with FirstNet and the solution that Lynette, that AT&T has created with a number of partners. There is another solution that IBM and AT&T has been working together, and is on the monitoring bridges within the south of the US. AT&T is providing all of the communications so we can capture the information from the sensors. IBM is providing all of the analytics and AI technology that allows to capture all of those thousands and thousands of data points, millions of data points every day, and then ensure that there is either defrosting in a particular bridge or other actions in order for those to be available to the citizens. So these are kind of real applications that are happening today. So it's not just proof of concepts or a scientific experiment. These are real applications that are happening on behalf of our citizens. And one colleague here asked, what is the Uber of 5G? So I think we are still, experimenting and learning. What will be that is still to come, and perhaps many of you will be, part of that creation. We know that 5G is going to be, existential to governments, to industries, to hospitals, to education, to so many industries will be changed, because you have this ability to communicate faster, because you have this ability to capture data and process it sometime where that data is captured. So such is with edge computing, that combining with 5G, it can allow for many more applications that will still need to be discovered. So I'm sure all of you will be part of the creation. And let me open now for some of your comments. What are you doing in 5G? What are you experiencing? What are the kind of solutions that you are working either in your company or with your customers? Anyone would like to share their experience?
Well, Maritza, let me start. I take the question. Well, first, for the ones that are not familiar with me, I am Andres Vasquez. I'm part of Schneider Electric. I'm responsible for the telcos and service providers like Maritza, but for Schneider Electric. To share with you the kind of things that our company is doing. Last year, we did a proof of concept in one of our factories where we deployed 5G to do augmented reality. So we implemented
Mm.
several pilots to deploy augmented reality solutions that we have as part of our portfolio. We have a solution that we sell to our industrial customers. So with 5G is easier based on the latency. So it is there's a kind of application for that. So we did a couple of trials and it is already deployed in our own factories. So this is one of the use cases that we deploy. And with our customers, we're also working on IoT type of applications, mainly on the digital factories or the digital transformation for the factories, where OT is in the middle of a convergence with IT. So for us, the convergence between that two worlds and the existence of 5G and even 6G and new kind of technologies that are enabling the edge computing are key at this point. So all the other options that we see and that we just mentioned on the beginning of this session, it is something that is a reality also at the different industries. Healthcare is one, transportation is the other one that we're seeing a lot of advances, and also at the government, they are investing a lot on this type of technology. So that's what I can share.
Thank you, Andres. Really great comments. Anyone else would like to share your experience? So maybe I'll share some of my experience there. We're working with some of the customers in Europe also, and share some of those use cases. And Lynette, probably you have many more use cases. So let me start, and then I'll pass it on to you. So we actually with Vodafone, we're working with them in Italy. It is a project that has been sponsored by the government. And in fact, Andres, just like you mentioned, government is sponsoring a lot of these projects in order to get adoption. And in particular, the past administration was very focused on not only 5G, but also creating technology within the US. So that was an initiative from the prior administration, and it will continue with this administration in making sure that the RAN technology, so the radio access network technology, the software and the hardware is being built in the US. So in case you're not part of that discussion, we have plenty of information as well. And we're part of, together with AT&T, as part of the ORAN Coalition, and what is an organization that is based in Washington. But with Vodafone, we set up, early and with the government there, and in about 100 different partners in the ecosystem. We have a set of, we created a set of use cases. So it was all about co-creation with our client. Co-creation in solutions such as remote patient monitoring, which has been, some of that has been very useful during COVID. Getting information of the patient, getting some of the sensory information even from the patient at home, getting that to be at the hospital or at the medical office. Remote patient monitoring, a key solution and use case that has been done in this domain. The second one is a smart agriculture. So, everyone, and we're all suffering, every country suffer from storms and too much rain or too much snow. So it is critical for agriculture to have precision agriculture. Sometimes it's drought, sometimes too much rain. So having control of the sensors that they can put in the field, reading those, having the readability of what are the rain factors, and then being able to produce maybe the same amount of crop, but with technology, with much more precision and that they were doing before. And sometimes double the crops, as it has happened in California in some of the wineries, that they double the crop, but by having that precision agriculture with all those sensors connected, and now they can deliver double despite of the drought in the region. The third area is safety. As you well know, especially in Europe, and in some cases, of course, in the US, safety against bad agents, against they are just, they are agents and people with guns and so on. How can you monitor and control what is happening at a train station or at a stadium where you have huge crowds? Now with cameras being monitoring all of the environment, the risk, and again, near, as Lynette said before, real-time, monitoring and precision in reading, what is happening in the environment. Can we detect, faces and detect and connect with existing databases and in terms of identifying bad actors. So safety becomes, a critical area, not only in Europe, but also, very much in the US as well as Latin America. So these are some of sort of kind of the key use cases. There were about 50 use cases created, thought about it, and then some of them went into creation and deployment within Milan and as well as Rome. So again, these are areas that, and we need communication, but we also need data. We need the ability to capture the data and to store the data, to analyze and to apply algorithms on AI and machine learning in order to do the matching and understand better what the data is telling us, and can we take better actions across the data. So those are some of kind of the experience that we are seeing with some of the telcos around the world. And of course, we're also working with AT&T on a number of use cases regarding COVID and others in our research center. So Lynette, if there are any other applications or use cases that you'd like to share with the colleagues, that will be super.
Sure. Well, let me just add to a few of what you've shared. You made a comment that really started my interest when we started talking about safety, right? And the facial recognition. And one of the things we're talking about 5G, but there's actually an overlay that's called 5G plus, right? And you'll see this occasionally depending where you are. We've launched it in about 38 cities around the US at this point, right? We're continuing our network build out and our expansion, so you'll see more of that. But when you see the 5G plus, that's the technology that's really going to help, especially with that safety features you were talking about. So let me just introduce that as, 5G plus is ultra fast, right? So it's even faster than the 5G. It's not intended to be universally available, but it's meant for targeted use cases. So think about high traffic areas like stadiums, campuses, airports. We have that high concentration of people and traffic. You're going to need that to run the kind of applications you were chatting about, right, for safety. So that's an added component of this. And I really think, the use cases are endless. Marisa, in your opening comments, you talked about the art of the possible. And I think that's where we are, right? That's where IoT was born, the Internet of Things, where you're talking about the devices and the bridges that we're monitoring and things like that. So I think, as all of you think about the work that you do today, the companies that you're in, the positions you play, the use cases are endless, right? What are we going to do when you're able to introduce the near real time, the faster speeds, the low latency? What could you do with it? Because our needs today obviously are different than they were 3 months ago, and it's going to continue to change. So they're endless, Marisa, is what I would say.
Yes, good, excellent. And I wanted to bring the cloud perspective here. So that's one of the areas that I've been leading for the last couple of years within IBM, and strategy in cloud and cloud. What is the role of cloud within this new network? So as you may know, and probably some of you are well aware of that, the networks are becoming less hardware integrated and more software based. So software-defined networks, network function virtualization have become sort of table stake now in the telecommunication industry. What I've been doing is working with a number of partners to have those key network functions and network workloads on the IBM cloud. And so when we talk about network workloads, that will be the voice processing, that will be the video processing, that will be the video processing and delivery. Those work used to be all in hardware, very vertically integrated, very hard to change, or will take many months to change. All of that now is being done in software. And the ability to have it in software is that it does actually to do this network. So now Lynette can refresh your network, in hours or days before, instead of months. And that is pretty powerful. It's very powerful on what we can do in terms of incorporating, just like we do it with the regular cloud for the regular IT. New functions, new features, fixing bugs or whatever it needs to get done. That speed of innovation, it can only be done via cloud. So the trend right now is that many of the telcos are delivering the networks via software. Many of those clouds, right, in via delivered via cloud. Some of those clouds are today private environments. In the future, probably some of the functions will go into a public cloud, depending on security and all of the regulations. Some of that will go into public cloud. But the combination of having technology and IT closer to communication, I think we're going to see that connection closer and closer and much more integrated. So it is cloud to deliver the network. It is cloud to host the applications that are delivered over that the network. Cloud to host the data, and that is for all the videos and all the games that are being played in the internet. So cloud is playing a key role, and I think having a strategy on hybrid cloud, so it's not just one cloud provider, but having multiple clouds depending on what you like to do. It becomes, fundamental to many of our clients. And for instance, our IBM clouds, it's very focused on industry, industry compliance, industry availability for industry applications. Microsoft Cloud, Azure, they do have a whole cloud for gaming. It's highly specialized in gaming. So there are different vendors have different specialized cloud, and any company needs multiple clouds. And we all, as a citizen, probably need a cloud where we store our emails, a cloud where we get our entertainment, such as videos. These are sort of another trend that is here to stay. And probably to be adopted as a multi-cloud environment. So and communication and cloud becomes much more integrated solutions. So it is very exciting what is happening. Very exciting of the work that I'm doing in this domain. And I'm looking forward also to what is called the distributed cloud. So now is just like Lynette has endpoints for the network. In those endpoints, we will have micro clouds or micro clouds where we can deliver applications, and that's what is called edge computing. It's just very exciting of what we can do. For instance, we talked about before about face recognition. We can do face recognition where we capture the data in the stadium and we can drive their process and get the information back, as opposed to doing the whole trip to the central cloud and then coming back with the data, which it will introduce latency in the processing. So these are all extremely exciting trends in work that is going on, innovation that is going on in the market, that I hope you are also seeing similar trends and behaviors in the different applications. So any question, any comments you'd like to add, Lynette, around distributed cloud and how AT&T is using cloud for your own delivery?
I think you've nailed it. I, not being an engineer like you are, right? You're very much involved in those pieces. So I love how you framed it up simply. But from here, Marisa, I don't know, do we want to open it up for general questions, or did you have anything else you wanted to cover?
No, I think we covered like the key themes to have a good discussion. So anyone that like to have questions?
There's about 3 questions in the chat that have come in. So if you guys want to tackle those.
Okay, let's do that.
All right.
Okay. Well,
do you want me to call them out? I'm more than happy to.
Yeah, Viviana, let's go for it.
All right. So first question, what would be use cases for theme parks? Any insight there with 5G?
Oh.
For theme parks, so Lynette, or I think it was Andre that talks about virtual reality and augmented reality. what is happening, and frankly, I was, I saw this in person in one of the times that I visited one of the Yankee games here, that while the spectators is watching the game, they are getting all the stats, on their mobile device. So sort of they are getting, different inputs about the experience. So I think it will be a richer experience in a theme park, where you, of course, you're living the experience, the physical experience, but you're augmenting that with some of the, the delivery of images or videos or things that are going on in your device. So I can see theme parks, definitely kind of a test bed for doing many of these applications.
Oh my gosh, I love the question. I haven't been to a theme park in a long time. Oh my goodness. I think there's a couple of things. One, in addition to that, is how do we upgrade, like update the traditional theme park rides and experiences, right? I think there's opportunity to, real time get information on how they're performing, the safety of them, right? I know I've seen some theme parks that have shut down due to safety issues. I think there's a way to integrate, not knowing anything about the rides, right? But integrate pulling data real time on performance and being able to create flags for when there's an area of opportunity to mitigate a risk. So I think it's updating, upgrading existing kind of traditional, and then absolutely to where Marisa went is how do we then enhance and create new experiences. So earlier I talked about like the hologram, right? Being able to do live reporting side by side with the NBA players. Right now the theme parks are creating very capital intense, right, long standing experiences. I think there's an opportunity with this to do things that are more flexible, right? And to be able to trade out experiences faster and be able to provide entertainment in a different way. What a fun question.
Yeah, and even knowing who the user is, tailoring that experience in much more personalized manner. That has been a dream for, for us, the techie people, for a long time. How can we personalize, the experience based on who you are, based on your characteristics, and how and what your mood is, maybe. So no, there's a lot of great things that we can imagine about.
Oh my gosh, I think there could be some cool things too. To your point on personalizing it. I know when I was a teenager, what I wanted out of the theme park and a roller coaster ride is a lot different than I want out of a roller coaster ride at this point in my life. So I bet there's some opportunities to customize those physical experiences as well, based on a personal preference.
Absolutely.
I love it. We have a few more questions. Hopefully we can squeeze these in here. Lynette, this is for you. Does AT&T have a different business model or stance for use or adoption of the low, mid versus high bands in 5G?
You know what? Yes, but that's not my area of expertise. So I'd love to get into it with you, but I'm not the right person for that. But I'm certainly happy to be able to. I'm happy to get back to you with the right information. But I think that's a great question.
All right, we'll get back to you, Benny, on that one.
Yeah.
So the next question is, what are the best resources to stay abreast on the trends with telcos and the cloud?
Oh, I have a whole list.
What are your favorites, Marisa? Do you have a go-to?
I follow. It's called mobile TV. I get the links on a daily basis. So I like them because they're sort of a multimedia type of information. There is light reading. Light reading has more, quite the reporters are quite serious. So you will get a little bit more consistent in realistic type of reporting. So light reading, there is heavy reading, but light reading is quite good. Mm-hmm. And just, there are a few others. So if anyone is interested, I can post my favorite list but primarily related to GSMA. And the other area, which again, as an engineer, I follow and I participate in the open source community. So I'm part of the board of Linux Foundation Networking. And of course, I get a lot of my information from the 30 plus telcos that are there, but we also post education and information regarding 5G and regarding the whole area of networking for telecommunications.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, I think we have time for one more. How is any insight on how 5G is expected to impact the retail industry, such as like Target, Walmart, etc.?
Sure, I'll jump in. I think it's, again, the art of the possible, right? I mean, just think about how COVID impacted the retail industry and the outcomes of that. You know, in AT&T alone, you know, I personally oversee about 250 retail stores, right? And so part of that experience has been, you know, people not wanting to go into the stores, right? How do I order online and pick up in store and do so seamlessly with security on my credit card, with accurate delivery of my services, the ability to return my, you know, if exchange from a device perspective, if you're trading in your device, you know, all of those components get better with 5G, right? They get faster, they get more secure, down to, you know, we're all used to when we used to go to restaurants, you know, on a near daily basis, you know, the server would take your credit card right to a terminal. Well, now they're not doing that anymore, right? The new technology is enabling table side processing, and that's a simple thing, but in this world where safety matters, right, where speed matters, those are the types of things that are already happening that I can speak to. There's a lot more going on when you think about the entire ecosystem, right, of retailers. Think about Amazon, supply chain. There's so many. It's such a long process. I'd love to dig into it with you guys, but I will say the art of the possible, it's all over the place, and it's going to touch every aspect of the retail experience and the buying process.
Absolutely. And for just everyone knowledge, probably there is also, you know, a trend called private 5G. So for instance, companies like Walmart are already trying that in some of their warehouses and stores. So private 5G basically allows you to have, you know, before we talk about having access to many more devices, sensors, and what's on the shelf, what is not on the shelf, when do I do the replacement? Though these are all sort of out of the possible in terms of use cases that are going to be, but companies like Walmart and other large retailers are already experimenting with that and looking at the private 5G delivered through a telco, where they can manage all of this, you know, humongous amount of information, but also take action on that information, because we have always gathered information. We just need to take action also. So analyze the data and get some actions back into the store or the users or who is managing the stores and so on.
Awesome. I love it. Well, that is our time for today, everyone, at least for the session. So I want to take the opportunity to thank both Marisa and Lynette for their time and their expertise and share them with us today. So thank you both so much. Really appreciative. However, if folks are still willing to stick around, we'll be, you know, for the next 15-20 minutes doing a little bit more networking. So feel free to stay on. But if not, I hope you enjoy your Friday and the rest of your weekend. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for joining. Be safe. Hopefully I'll stick around.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.